podcast.
Thank you, Joanne, for this invitation. Really happy to be here.
It's a real pleasure. I know that you probably, I don't know whether you remember, you were one of the very first people I asked to appear on the podcast.
Yes.
way back when. And life got in the way. I know you're a new mum again, and
Exactly.
Congratulations, by the
Thank
way.
you.
So I'm really happy that you made time for us today.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. So Pascale, you're a bit of an AML CFT expert. How did that career path come about for you?
What I can say is that I didn't specifically choose that path.
Okay.
And instead, I would say that AML CFT compliance
Chose you.
yeah, was somehow presented to me. So let me explain. So, over the years, I've gathered a solid background and experience in funds and financial services. So mostly in legal, regulatory compliance and AML CFT compliance. And in my view, from my experience, funds and financial services cannot really survive without AML CFT compliance. So when Mauritius was placed on the grey list of FATF and the EU blacklist, so this created a boost in the demand for compliance professionals and consultants on the Mauritian market. So that's when I decided to position myself, and I set up PL Consulting in January 2021 to embark on this journey. So I've since conducted a few independent audits on AML CFT. I also accompany fund managers and investment managers to guide their boards and their compliance team in laying the right AML CFT foundation. I also deliver AML CFT trainings, and we do all sorts of other consultancy work in the compliance field. So finally, what I can say is, that AML CFT compliance was what allowed me to kick off my journey as an entrepreneur.
Do you get a lot of, because I always wonder, because obviously as a law firm, we have to comply with all these rules and regulations. Do you sometimes, particularly in the fund industry, get a bit of pushback from clients because they just want to do business?
Yes, in fact, in this industry, when usually you voice out either areas of non-compliance, or when you need to abide by the law, the regulatory framework, be it in terms of KYC, CDD, or risk assessment, there is some pushback, usually from the board members, if I may say it. And I would like to also say hats off to all the compliance officers out there, because it's a very tedious work. The workload is tremendous, and we know the pressure associated with that function.
Dare I say, sometimes it can be a thankless job as well, because when you're you're telling the business, no, you can't onboard that client, and they don't understand.
They don't
why.
understand. Yeah, usually that's what happens. But now with Mauritius having been on the blacklist and the grey list of the FATF, I think it was a lesson for all of us. Yes, there is that, I would say, reluctance in the board accepting the compliance officer always coming to them and saying, we need to comply with this one, this client, we need to do EDD, etc. Or, please onboard this client because, I know him for a very long time, etc. No, we've seen that risk assessment is what has made the difference now, during the past 2 years, in the implementation of the framework by the FSC through their on-site inspections as well. Because we were, I would say, as compliance officers, professionals at the time, we were usually abiding only by the letter of the law and by doing KYC CDD. Sure. So risk assessment was done, but not on a very large scale, not on a regular basis as well. Now we've seen that there are so many factors to take into consideration when onboarding a client, when doing a risk assessment, either on the country or on the individual himself, etc., his profession. We need to know the person. Who is he, where is he from, etc., what is his source of funds, etc. So I think there is a change in the mentality, in the approach itself to compliance now.
Would you say that we're now in a position where, I don't think it probably used to be the case before we went on the list. Do you think that we have developed a sort of risk culture now?
Yes, I would say that generally speaking, and maybe specifically in the funds and financial services industry, that we are at a very early stage in the risk management culture in Mauritius. Right. In my view, maybe I can put a caveat here for the banking and insurance sectors, which in my view, I did not have, the option but to develop that culture and sustain that culture further to the 2008 financial crisis. So yes, Joanne, I think a robust risk culture is achieved when an entity has put in place a robust risk governance structure and has also set clear risk appetite. But I think most importantly, it's important for the staff to get acquainted and to be able to apply that risk management framework in the whole organization. So I think, where is this blocking? In my view, the example needs to come from the top. The board and senior management, from my experience, need to ensure that the organization implements a robust risk management framework with proper implementation, effective and efficient implementation and testing as well. But I think beyond that, and we were discussing that earlier, I think that the board should also encourage reporting on areas of non-compliance. Because not only on AML CFT, maybe there could be reporting on an operational risk or a legal or even a reputational risk for the organization. So I think it's important for staff to be able to get used to that kind of reporting back to higher management. And also they need to feel comfortable and at ease to do it. So I think that would also level up the risk management culture in an organization.
Let's say, for example, in a small organization, it's not just a question of the risk, the buck stops with the compliance officer and the MLRO. What you're saying is that it needs to be developed across the board. Every single staff needs to realize that they have certain obligations with respect to risk.
Yeah, I think when the staff firstly knows what the business is about. So what do we do? What is the risk appetite? What can we do? What do we not accept? So I think then they will be able, more in a position to report on those maybe failures at an operational level, or even tomorrow if a deal is concluded without proper legal agreement, there might be a legal risk for the organization, or risk of dispute, etc. So I think that would enable an organization to develop that risk culture. So yes, to answer your question, I think it goes beyond the AML CFT.
And now that we're finally off the dreaded blacklist, that was a very painful couple of years, do you think the worst is over, or actually this is just the beginning?
That's a good question, Joanne, because we were all impacted by that news. I remain very confident in the offshore industry in Mauritius. I think for so long as Mauritius maintains its commitment to continue working with the Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group to continuously enhance its AML CFT system, we would be on the safe side, I would say. And not only that, I think that it was an eye-opener for the whole industry. The FSC and the professionals in the sector, we have realized that we can no longer remain in our comfort zone. Ongoing training and ongoing enhancement of skills need to be the norm. The regulator, be it the FSC or the FIU, they need to continue with their on-site and off-site inspections. But we see that happening on a recurrent basis. Yeah. So. And that episode has also led clients in the offshore industry to get acquainted and to accept our requirements for KYC CDD. Yeah, so it was an eye-opener for all of us. And, I personally think that things will get difficult as well because, now we have opened the door to digital banking. And also with the recognition of virtual assets in our framework, definitely this will require a new set of compliance skills. And, let's see how it all unfolds in the coming years.
Yeah, no, I'm looking for, I shouldn't be saying I'm looking forward to that, but I'm intrigued to know how it will pan out, especially as, you mentioned virtual assets. We've all seen the crash of one of the biggest crypto exchanges. I think that, with every piece of legislation that comes out, we need to obviously think about the regulatory aspect and the AML CFT side of it as well, because it's all well and good saying, you know, we're open for doing ICOs and all that fintech stuff, and then the last thing we want is to host an exchange that then crashes from what I understand, it was mainly due to, you know, big failings in the regulatory compliance monitoring.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and overall, the whole crypto space is a high risk area, high risk environment. So we have exchanges that are regulated, non-regulated, but even those which are regulated, we see that there is a high risk of dealing with them. So at any point in time, we can face, you know, big losses of investment of money, and even in that space, you know, it's all virtual, etc. And I think that compliance officers are now, you know, enhancing their skills, and we've seen initiatives on the market like the Financial Services Institute, which is now more dedicated towards, you know, giving training to compliance professionals, and, you know, I think generally raising awareness in that field in the whole sector. So yes, I think that ongoing training is essential, but also go to the professionals that understand, you know, that space. Yeah.
And talking about, I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, crypto is a high-risk area. Do you think there are other industries that still remain quite vulnerable in Mauritius in terms of AML CFT?
Yeah, in my humble opinion, Joanne, I would say that maybe the real estate industry and the gambling sector remain two sectors which for me are still vulnerable to AML CFT. I think it's principally because they are new to the whole framework, especially in terms of the implementation. They still have a tick box approach.
The legislation is there.
But, you know, now we are seeing more on-site visits by the FIU, which is a very good thing. But they still have that, in my view, the tick box approach compared to the other sectors, you know, where the thinking process, the implementation and testing are at a very mature stage. So, yeah.
What more can be done to kind of level up is it a question of training? Is it a question of ongoing upskilling? What would you say are the solutions to?
Yes, I think you're right to say that ongoing training, upskilling of skills, etc. But I wish to also lay emphasis on that again. I think it needs to come from the top management. We've seen different organizations doing the same thing, but doing the same business, conducting the same business, but at the top there are either people who are committed to not only be compliant, but to develop that risk culture, to invest in people, etc. So, and other organizations where, you know, you have that tick box approach, or you have a compliance officer there who does all the work, just to get past the FSC visit. So I think it's more in the mentality that we need to change, but nothing will change if you don't have, you know, on the other side, a receptive board, an empowering board as well.
Well, I'm still hopeful that we are, you know, it's a long journey ahead, but I'm hopeful that we are heading the right direction. You mentioned earlier about, you know, when you started PL Consulting, that was kind of the beginning of your journey as an entrepreneur. I still think that for Mauritius particularly, I mean, not only for Mauritius, but for Mauritius particularly, it can be quite tough. I think it's easy to say, I mean, we have people coming up to us all the time, you know, because we're quite present on social media, they think that it's easy, but I think it can be a very lonely journey. It can be a very challenging journey, especially if you're not, and I know it's a loaded word, but especially if you're not privileged. I'm not, and I think that you're not either. Well, first of all, are you happy to have embarked on that journey? And second of all, what challenges do you think that you have faced?
That's a very good question, Joanne. I'm still wondering whether it was the right choice. No, I'm really happy. I had decided in my mind, at least since 2015, But with the day-to-day, it was difficult to actually
having
position
obligations
yourself, etc. Yeah, exactly. I think I have the strong support of my husband. That's a very important thing as well. And I'm happy today because I get to implement what I've learned, and I get to help others, to at least upgrade their level of expertise. To come to a level where it's in compliance with the framework. So I'm really happy because I see the difference on the market. I see my input vis-a-vis the clients, and they are happy with what I do, with what I bring. When you're an entrepreneur, you do all sorts of things, okay? So I don't really, I'm not limited to AML CFT, but I do all sorts of other, consultancy work as well in the corporate governance sector. What I see is that you keep on learning, you keep on accepting other ventures until you know where you want to go. Yeah. Yes, I think that's a very good journey to know yourself as a professional. Yeah. So I'm very happy to have embarked on this journey. So in terms of the challenges, we know,
Yes, we know what the challenges are.
And I think if I could consolidate all in one, I would say that Mauritius is just getting used to placing trust in Mauritian women professionals in the market. But some might say it's a mentality issue, but I think that it's more to do with, Mauritius still being a very patriarchal society. So yeah, but I think it is changing because we see a lot of women professionals now coming to the market as confident and impactful as ever. Yeah. You are the perfect example, Joanne. One of the examples. Yes, of for young women professionals out there. I think it's very important. We've seen a lot happening also on LinkedIn, etc. And it's important to leave our footprint on the Mauritian market when we feel that we can bring and we can make an impact and we can bring something substantial to the market.
Have you felt that with clients that you have dealt with that they value you for your competence, that they don't see you as a woman, they don't see you as... my personal experience has been it has changed. When I look at Mauritius 20 years ago, when I left to go to uni, I remember at the time I didn't think that I would come back because of the, as you mentioned, mentality, the kind of the nature, the cultural aspect of it. But I think it has changed. There's probably still a long way to go, but do you feel that sometimes that they see you as a woman?
Yes, Joanne, we get to meet a lot of people of different mentalities. Yeah. But yes, the clients with whom I work, they are very empowering in terms of the work, but treating you as a professional, irrespective of whether you're a woman or a man. I've met others who are, I would say, reluctant to trust you all the way. Maybe they have trust in you, in your competence, but at the end, the dialogue changes from what was agreed in terms maybe of opportunities, etc. So I tend to think that there is change, but we are slowly getting there. But at the same time, if you meet the right people, if you are in the right niche, I would say, then you get to be empowered and to evolve in the professional you want to be.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out now and wants to become an entrepreneur and is looking to you and for advice? What would you give them in terms of advice?
I think, the first thing I would say, just do it. We tend to overthink, say, well, will it work?
We're scared.
We are scared. What will they say? Am I competent enough, etc. So I think just need to go for it. And if you want to embrace a career in compliance, go for trainings, meet the professionals, and also be rigid, in your approach towards compliance. But as an entrepreneur, in any case, if you want to meet yourself down the road, if you want to know yourself, know what you're capable of, or what are your limits, what you're worth, I think you just need to go for it.
And we spoke about offline before we started, about coaching probably being a valuable option. Have you derived any value from it?
I had the opportunity to attend some coaching sessions from the Women Leadership Academy, organized by the MIUD in collaboration with the British High Commission. I think what I've derived from those sessions, the most important thing, there are so many benefits, is that I realized that I was not lonely. There is a community. Other women professionals, they also have the same challenges as me, and they have also challenges at striking the right balance between personal and professional. And I think the exchanges that we had were very empowering for me. Understanding the market, understanding how we just, I've thought a lot about you during the coaching sessions, because we had our first conversation, talking about
almost 3 years ago.
Yes.
Before the pandemic.
We were talking about how we just need to go on the market. That resonated with me, and I said to myself, okay, I'm not lonely on that journey. There is a community, and we are every day we have empowering quotes from the coaches, etc. So every morning you open your WhatsApp on a good note, and you start off your journey with a positive attitude. So I think it's still beneficial for every one of us women.
So Pascale, last question. I know that we weren't planning to talk about it today, but when we were talking offline, you said that there's an emerging area that is of interest to you. Yes. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that? I personally think it is the future, is where it's not the future, it's the present, but the market hasn't completely caught up with that yet. Could you just share with the audience what it is and why do you think it's important?
Yeah, so I think you're talking about ESG, environmental, social and governance. Yes, Joanne, I think it all happened during the second lockdown when there were so many webinars on LinkedIn, etc., about ESG. So I attended a few of them, and that rang a bell, because at the time when I was setting up investment funds back in 2008, when I started, I saw ESG in fund documentation, without really reviewing that, but you knew that all the DFIs were investing based on ESG criteria in Africa.
Usually loads of annexes at the back of the page document.
I thought to myself at the time, so okay, what's the impact today of their investment at the time, 10 years ago nearly? So in my view, why is ESG important? So the environmental is clear, but social, what we also discussed about the risk culture, empowering, employees, etc. But on the G aspect, the governance, I start to see that there is a demand for that on the market, for either MCs or other organizations to level up on their corporate governance framework, be it in terms of diversity as well. So I think it's the future. Personally, it resonated with me because I finally found that part of humanity in the corporate world, Yes. And but also because it's just that what we are seeing, all over the world with climate change impact, what we've seen in terms of, commitment from all the countries for decarbonization, etc. And I think that's why ESG is important. For people embarking on that journey, I think it's the next step for me personally, post-compliance. If you want to have an industry, like Luxembourg, for instance, they have embraced that concept. Even in the funds and financial services industry, it is there. There are ratings that are given to those types of entities in terms of their ESG impact. But ESG is vast. Huh? It can go from ESG measurement, you need to implement ESG within the organization. There are so many levels of implementation depending on the size of the organization. So I fell in love with that concept because not only it resonated with me, but I can feel that I can bring something in that industry. So of course, I would say it's not mature enough on the Mauritian market. I would say we haven't embraced ESG as such here. But again, we've also seen that reporting on ESG, maybe management companies have seen that there is a demand for that. Reporting on ESG from their investors, on what happened with regards to their investment, maybe in Africa or elsewhere. Beyond that, I think that it's the next step for our industry to be able to remain robust in terms of empowering people also, and having a robust corporate governance structure framework across board.
Thank you so much, Pascale. Thank you for your time. Thank you for making the time. I know you probably have a little one who's looking for you. Yes, and I wish you the best of luck in the rest of your journey. I think people like you are inspiring to many women in Mauritius. I think we need more. I would want to say like us. There needs to be more people like you. Yeah, all the best.
Yes, I wish you all the best again, Joanne. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure.